We're going to talk about solving inequalities where we multiply and divide both sides. In the last lesson we looked at inequalities where basically we solved the inequality by adding or subtracting to both sides. And so then of course the next step is we're going to look at multiplying and dividing. And so this would be along the same lines as when we solved equations and we had something like 3x equals 15, and we solved that equation by dividing both sides by 3 and getting the answer x equals 5. Well, we can do the same thing with an inequality. Okay, so let's look at our first inequality where we have 5x is less than negative 10. So what would you do to solve that inequality? Okay, just like before, we solved an equation, you would divide both sides by 5. So we're going to bring our inequality sign down. So you get x is less than negative 10 divided by 5 is negative 2. And so just like before, we're going to graph that on a number line. So here's 0, so negative 2 would be right there. Okay, and so what kind of circle would you have there at negative 2? An open circle or a solid circle? Okay, you should have an open circle, and then is your line going to go, arrow going to go to the left, or is your arrow going to go to the right? Okay, you should have your arrow going to the left. Remember, if you're not sure, look at that inequality sign, and if you made an arrow out of that inequality sign, it'd be pointing to the left, and so that's the direction we want to go here. You can also check that by just picking a number over here. So pick a random number over here like negative 10. 5 times negative 10, that is less than negative 10. And so when we pick a number on our number line, it actually checks out in the equation. Okay, on number 2, what would you do to solve number 2? Okay, you should multiply both sides by 3. And so when you take and multiply both sides by 3, you get y is greater than 3. And so again, if this is 0 on our number line, we'll find 3. And again, you would have an open circle, and this time we want greater than. If you make an arrow out of that, it's going to the right, and so our number line should go to the right. And if we just want to pick something and check it, if we picked a number like 9, 9 divided by 3, 9 over 3 is 3. That is bigger than 1, so we've got it going the right direction because we've found one that works. Now that's works just fine like it does here. However, something really strange happens when we have negative numbers. When we have negative numbers, for example, let's say we had negative 2x is, I don't know, we'll say greater than 8. This is not a problem in your notes. Okay, we're just going to add this here. Negative 2x is greater than 8. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and solve this like we were doing before. You would divide both sides by negative 2. And you would end up with x on this side, and you'd end up with negative 4 on this side. And if we just carried this same inequality sign down, x is greater than negative 4, and we were to graph that, we would have an open circle at negative 4, and we would pick a number like 0, because 0 is greater than negative 4. But if we put 0 back into the original problem, does that work? Does negative 2 times 0, is it greater than 8? No, it's not. So there's something wrong here with our answer. Now obviously it's not our dividing. We divided right. But what happens is this inequality sign gets all messed up when you divide by a negative. It confuses it basically. And so one way to go around that is instead of solving it the way that we just solved it, we can go ahead and try to make this a positive x instead. Okay, so if we really wanted to, we could add 2x to this side over here. We could move our 2x over here to make it positive. And then we could move our 8 over here and make it negative. Okay, so negative 8 is greater than 2x. Then we could divide by 2, and we could get negative 4 is greater than x. But our x is on the wrong side here, so like we talked about in the last lesson, you'd want to move this around, and the negative 4 is what's getting eaten by the fish, so we'd want to make the negative 4 get eaten by the fish here, and so it's going to end up as x is less than negative 4. Now if you remember, that's the opposite answer we got before, but now this actually does work. If we pick a number less than negative 4, let's say negative 10, negative 2 times negative 10, that actually is greater than 8. And so this is the right inequality sign here. So to keep from having to do all these steps to get our answer, we can instead just remember one simple rule, and that is that when we multiply or divide by a negative, it confuses that inequality sign. It mixes it up. And so when you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, you have to change the direction of the inequality sign. You have to flip-flop it. Dividing by a negative makes you flip-flop the inequality sign. So that's kind of the flip-flop rule for multiplying or dividing by a negative. So anytime we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to flip-flop the inequality sign. So in number 3, we would be dividing by negative 3. So we're going to divide by negative 3. So that leaves us with a v here. And 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. Now always before we've just brought this inequality sign down, but since we divided by a negative, it confuses this inequality sign, and so we have to flip-flop it to get the right answer. And so our actual answer is going to be v is greater than or equal to negative 3. So on our number line, here's 0. We want to find where negative 3 is at. Right there. We're going to have a solid circle at negative 3, and then we want greater than or equal to negative 3. And just to be sure, let's pick a number to make sure that it actually does work. So let's pick a number like 0 here. Okay, if you take negative 3 times 0, is that less than 9? Yes, it is. Negative 3 times 0 is 0. 0 is less than 9, so we've got our number line going the right direction. Okay, how about let's do number 4. Okay, we got negative 18 is less than or equal to negative 6b. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve this. Okay, we would divide by negative 6 because that's the number in front of the variable there. So when you take negative 18 divided by negative 6, you get positive 3. Okay, we end up with b over here. Now normally we bring this inequality sign down, but remember, we divided by a negative number, and so we have to flip-flop that inequality sign. So our answer is 3 is greater than b. Now we don't like having the b over on that side, so let's flip it back around and put the b on the left side like it's supposed to be. Our alligator is eating the 3 over here. When we bring it over here, it still needs to be eating the 3. So b is less than 3 is our answer. So here's 0 on our number line. Here's 3. So go ahead and draw your number line in. What's it going to look like? You should have an open circle at 3 because it's open underneath our inequality sign, and it should be pointing to the left. Pointing to the left because if we made an arrow out of that inequality sign, that's the direction it's going. Okay, another example here. We've got k divided by negative 6 is less than or equal to 1. So what would you do to get rid of the divide by negative 6? Okay, you should multiply by negative 6. So we're going to multiply both sides by negative 6. So multiply by negative 6, multiply by negative 6. So this side, we're just left with k. 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. We multiplied by a negative number, so we have to flip-flop the inequality sign. It was less than or equal to. Now it's going to be greater than or equal to. So go ahead and graph your number line for k is greater than or equal to negative 6. Okay, so find negative 6. Should have a solid circle at negative 6 because there's a solid line underneath our inequality. It's greater than or equal to. Should be going this direction. And just to double check, if we picked a number like 0, 0 divided by negative 6 is 0, and 0 is less than 1. So we've got that going the right direction when we check it. Okay, go ahead and try to solve number 6 on your own. Okay, so you should have started by multiplying both sides by negative 2. And so what you end up with is you end up with 10, and you end up with t. We multiplied by a negative 2, so you have to use the flip-flop rule. You have to flip that inequality sign around. So 10 is greater than or equal to t, but we don't like having the t over on the right, so we're going to rewrite it on the left. Notice your alligator was eating the 10, so when we change this around to get the t on the other side, the alligator still needs to be eating the 10. So t is less than or equal to 10. And so if this was 0 on our number line, this is 10. And we want less than or equal to, so you should have put a solid circle at 10. And your number line should be going this way. So hopefully that's what you got. Okay, so now we can solve inequalities that have plus or minus signs in them. We can solve inequality signs that have multiplication and division in them. And so the next step to this will be putting it together and solving multi-step inequalities where there's some addition and subtraction and some multiplication and division. We have to do several steps to get the right answer. But for today, we're just going to focus on these ones where you have to either multiply or divide. And remember, if you multiply or divide by a positive number, nothing changes. You do it the same way you've always done it. The inequality just drops straight down when you multiply or divide by a positive. But when you multiply or divide by a negative, it confuses everything around, and so you have to use the flip-flop, and you have to flip that inequality sign around.